And because I use multiple time frames, I'm typically going into a higher time frame trend or counter trend. Okay, the first thing I want to go over is the Thd Trend ATR indicator, and that actually plots a lot of information on the price bars. Number one, these pink bars, we also call that magenta, tells us that it was a wide bar, and wide bars do typically retrace. Okay, so in this instance I've had a wide bar here and I had a wide bar here. Okay, then we have the plus sign, and that's actually the Atr Stop that is built into the indicator, and it also acts as support and resistance for price. Most of the time when price approaches the ATR, you will see it bounce in the direction of the ATR. So in this case, it's a blue ATR, it would bounce to the upside. Red ATR, it will bounce to the downside. We also have the gray congestion dots in the trend indicator, and that means that anytime it flips the ATR, which means it goes from one color to another color, in this case it went from red to blue, if there is a lack of conviction with traders being able to continue that move up, then we will plot the congestion dots. Anytime you see the congestion dots, you can anticipate a touch of the congestion dot and then a retracement back to the ATR. The reason that that happens is traders are trying to find an area that will support price to either go up or for price to come down. And then we also, and I don't have it on my screen, but we also have the reversal bar put into the trend ATR indicator, and that simply identifies when price has made a reversal bar. Okay, directly beneath the price bars is the ADX, and this is one that's unique to THD. It was originally developed by Wells Wilder, and I found that I couldn't read his, so I developed my own. Anytime we have these magenta peaks, is what we call them, it is a pointed top, we know that price should go back to the ATR. And as you can see, we had a magenta peak, price goes back to the ATR. Here we have had a magenta peak and it has not come back to the ATR until we had the subsequent one over here. Now we have this on a 3-minute chart. We like to see that price comes back to within 5 ticks of the ATR. But what about on the higher time frames? What was that magical number for price to come back? Instead of using the magical numbers, we actually color the price bar gray. So anytime you see the gray price bar, you know you are close enough to the ATR to take a trade. Now the other indicator that you see on my screen over here on the 45-minute, I don't use it on the higher time frames as much. I do use it on the lower time frames, and that is the volume indicator. Again, it's a lot programmed into the volume indicator. Number one, your price action is actually programmed into the color scheme of the volume indicator. So anytime you see a red volume bar using the volume indicator, that means that price has made a low when compared to the previous bar. Anytime you see a blue volume bar, that means that price has made a high when compared to the previous bar. If you see a magenta volume bar, that tells us that price made an outside bar. In other words, it exceeded both the high and the low of the previous bar. If it is a gray volume bar, then that tells us that the price bar was an inside bar. In other words, the high and the low of the current bar is contained within the previous bar. Then we plot all of the volume. Above zero is buyers. All the volume below zero are sellers. This is what makes it directional. Okay. In addition to that, with NinjaTrader, we were able to plot the delta so we can see the limit orders and the market orders. So the actual height of the volume bar would be considered limit orders, and then this gray hash mark is where the market orders finished for that bar. So in other words, between this bar and this bar, you can see that both the limit and the market orders were actually increasing on that bar as that low was made. Does everyone understand that? Now, the trading methodology is relatively simple. We look for a price to come back to the ATR. When it comes back to the ATR, it has to be on diverging volume. This is a great example of that happening. Okay, so we come back to the ATR. As we came back to the ATR, we had diverging volume here. So that said, more likely than not, there are not enough sellers in this market, so the market should continue up. Now, it does not matter if you're trading futures or whether you're trading binary options, the entry mechanism would be exactly the same. That is by far the easiest trade setup that we have. Now, we can also do it off of the congestion dots, and let me see if we have one of those. Well, you're potentially getting it now on the 180-minute chart. Do you see how they're flipping the ATR? It's right at the congestion dot. All we would need to do is wait for that bar to finish at 9 o'clock, read the volume. If the volume is diverging on the buyer side, we could actually enter a short position on gold to the downside. Okay? Does everybody understand that so far? No, I'm looking at it on the 180-minute chart, Larry. I haven't gone into the multiple time frames yet. Right now, price is approaching the congestion dot on the 180-minute chart. This bar finishes at 9 o'clock this morning. If you wanted to trade this from a 180-minute chart, you would put the volume on the chart, look at the volume to see if it is diverging. If it is, then you would enter a short position because price should actually come back down. And at the end of this bar is when you will get your ATR. Typically, this will come back down to the ATR. Does everybody understand that now? Could you use a daily binary? Yes, you could. And I would look, you know, you've got a couple of different ways you could do a binary on this, James. Give me a minute and I'll look and see what binaries are available on gold. Okay, gold daily, you've got quite a few binaries. These are all the binaries for gold. So in this case, the congestion dot is at 1325. Okay. They don't have a 1325. They do have a 1324. So at 9 o'clock, right now, that price is at $43. So at 9 o'clock, if you have diverging volume, you could actually sell this one. You could also do the 1327 at 25. It just gives you a couple of different trades that you could actually do it. You may even be able to do the 1321 depending on where price is at 9 o'clock. Do you understand that now, James? I wouldn't even do a ceiling on that. I would do the binaries. And this is where, you do have a lot of options on the binaries. Whereas in the future, you would only just be able to trade this one future contract. Now, that is using one time frame. With it being a 180-minute chart, you could probably do that. When I'm trading these lower time frames, I always use my higher time frames to dictate my direction. So let's start at the 1440. The 1440 is saying that we are in an uptrend. The 720 is saying the same thing, we are in an uptrend. Now, the 180 is going to be key today because, number one, they have to break the area of resistance at the ATR, which is at 1321. They also have to break the 1325 area because either of these will act as resistance. Okay? So then when you come down to the 180 and you're trying to say, okay, what's it going to do as it stands right now, okay, you've had a strong divergence right here at the top of this market. So I would expect them to test for sellers at the moment. You've also got a magenta peak over here on the 12-minute, again saying it should come back to the ATR, which is at 1321. So I think the key on gold today is probably going to be the 180-minute chart. Does everybody understand that? If they're unable to break this area here that's acting as a resistance, then the market will come down. Does everybody understand that now? So today, for me, the 180 is going to be the most important chart probably for me to watch. All right, let's go look at crude. All right, crude, we're at the congestion dots here on the 1440. We're also probably going to get a magenta peak over here on the 720. That would be my take on crude. Now, in order to go up, and if we get this magenta peak on crude, it should actually retrace back to 104.62. That's where the ATR is, okay? In order to do that, you are going to have to break a 12-minute ATR, a 45-minute ATR, and a 180-minute ATR. My most important concern right now would be to break the ATR on the 12-minute. Remember I said anytime you approach an ATR, it can bounce to the downside in this case because the ATR is red. So I would wait, let this bounce to the downside, and then see if buyers actually start to come into the market with enough power to flip this ATR. Does everybody understand that one? All right. The 180-minute ATR, no, the 180-minute is at 103.82, Chris. It is the 720-minute ATR that is at 104.60. Okay? Now, this is one that if you think you're going to get the ATR in, okay, you could actually do a weekly on this, because remember, sometimes it takes a couple of days for these higher time frame magenta peaks to work out. So if I went over to crude and I checked the weeklies on crude, right now price is at 103.41. let's see what they have available on the weeklies. $103.75. $103.75 is probably going to be your best bet. It has a premium right now of about $42. And that premium, and I'm going to draw it on here so you can see it, is going to be at 103.75, which is about here. So if it comes up here and touches this, this is what's going to give you the magenta peak. Does everybody understand that? Now you could also add the volume indicator, and I'm hoping I don't lock myself up, because this is a higher time frame. Sometimes it'll lock it up. You can also put the directional volume indicator on there. And this is one that's considered out of the money. Okay, so do you see how you're getting all this divergence in here? In other words, as it's making lower lows, the volume is getting weaker and weaker. This is where we are anticipating the magenta peak to come in. Does everybody understand that one? And it's got all week to do this. So, hold on a minute. Okay. I like that setup, so I went ahead and entered it myself. So, now remember it. I got in that one for $42.50. That's my worst case scenario. If I see that that's not going to come in, I can always back out of that trade. But I kind of like that setup. So, and I did that on a weekly. I didn't do it on just today, because I know that, you know, this may take a couple of days to play out. It's not going to do it by 2 o'clock today. Okay. All right, let's go and look at the Nasdaq. Now, on the Nasdaq, we have a magenta peak, which means that this should pull back to the ATR on the 1440. Okay. Again, this could take a while to do that. And if you're looking at the volume indicator, do you see how all of these are decreasing in size? So this one I would anticipate coming back at least to 38.87.75. Okay, and I'm going to take that off there because it's causing a slowdown. Okay, so you've got the 1440 saying down, you've got the 720 minutes saying down. Right now the 180 is saying down. It has not been able to retrace back to this ATR yet. You've got a 45 minute saying to the downside. You've got a 12 minute that shows it did not make it back to the congestion dots and is already retracing. I'm not seeing any buying volume in here, and I'm already short the Nasdaq from earlier today. Now, what I did not do was a weekly on that because I just thought about it. So if I go to US Tech 100 and look at the weeklies, 38.86. You could get 38.98 for a $50 premium. You could get 39.10 for 38.50. Let's see, 38.43, but that's going to pull up. You could do 38.74. That's going to cost you about 25 bucks, or 38.62 at 85 bucks. I like to come in above this ATR though. Yes, I am recording this one. You could go with the 38.98 for 49.50, which gives you roughly about a $50 premium on that. And this is something that, remember, we learned this in the binary webinar. Now look at the different ones that you can do, because we're expecting this to come back down to the ATR, guys. You've got 39.34 for 14.50. That's your profit potential. You got $26 here. You got $38 here. And then you go out of the money on this one, which is 49.50. You're about, I don't know, 2-3 points away from that already. Then you have one at 61.50. These are all weeklies, okay? Now, that's one side of it. Then on the other side of that, if you think it's going to close above 38.74, you could buy this one. I wouldn't mess with the others. It's not enough premium there. So it just shows you the differences that we can actually do trading the binaries. You get a lot more trading opportunities. All right, any questions on the Nasdaq? I'm expecting a down day because of the magenta peaks on the higher time frames. I'm already in a trade. I expect it to be less than 3,900 by 4 o'clock today, basically. Any questions on that, guys? All right, let's go over to the ES and see what the ES is doing. Now the ES, we don't have magenta peaks here, but we do have a lot of divergence going on there. We have retraced back to the ATR on the 720 minute. What's the profit potential for the Nasdaq trade? Depending on which one you take, Gustavo, my profit potential is $46 if it does what I think it will do. Okay. So, you know, here the divergence itself is telling us it's probably going to go down. Here we still have about 4 points to the ATR on the 720 minute chart. We do have a flat magenta dot here that just tells me that that low would be retested, which they're doing now. We're still in a downtrend here, no potential for magenta peaks. We're still in a downtrend over here. You know, I would be looking to see, as this pulled back to the ATR on the ES, does it break the 1967.25 area? If I was doing an option, I would see if I could get something that was below 1970, and let me look real quick. The US 500, if you go out to a daily 1969, they have a 1968, still has 47.50 as premium that you can collect on the short side. You could also do 1971, it has $30 that you could collect. 1974 has $14.50. So you have a lot of different options there. And that's going out to 4:15. Now, if you just went out until 10 o'clock this morning, then 1668, you've only got about $43 in premium. Yeah, to the downside. And most of these I actually do out to the end of the day right now because the markets tend to move slower during the summer. We may get that spike and then the rest of the day it comes back to where I thought it would go. Does everybody understand that? All right, let's move on to the Dow this morning. Dow, pretty much the same thing. You're still getting divergence between this high and all the subsequent highs. You did have a magenta peak here. It's retracing back to the ATR. Still has about 40 points to the ATR here. It came to within 10 points of the ATR on the 180. Looks like it's moving down. Looks like the 12-minute ATR is actually holding it down. Again, I'm not seeing a lot of buyers coming into this market. So to me, overall, it still looks like it's going to be a down day for the Dow as well. And the Russell, and I mean, most of the indices do follow the same pattern. The only thing different on the Russell, you're almost at the ATR. You have had a wide bar down on the Russell. You may get a magenta peak here that will cause a retracement back to this ATR. But to do that, you're going to have to clear the ATR on the 12 and on the 45-minute chart. Remember, ATRs act as support and resistance, and if it does not break those, it will continue down. Okay? Let's go and look at the DAX. I had a beautiful trade today on the DAX. It was way back here when it pulled back to the ATR, and I anticipated it would come down and test 98.66. So I actually sold 98.72, and I got a really good premium because it was out of the money. But this is something that we actually do when the higher time frames tell us a high or a low will be tested. Then we can go out of the money and get a lower risk trade with a higher reward potential on it. And in this case, you can see it did exactly what I anticipated. And I think I made like $40 per contract on that one, if I'm not mistaken. I posted it up on the blog. But that was a very, very easy trade to do. Now, the center window here is what I call the currency meter. Did I incorporate the higher time frames? Absolutely, I did, James. In this particular one, we had made a magenta peak. Okay, we were still bright red here. We were bright red on the 45-minute. It had failed to retrace on the 180-minute chart. We had this flat ADX peak that I talk about. It's not a peak, it's just a magenta dot. So I knew that it would come back and test that low as well. It was just a really nice trade setup. Yeah, it'll retest the lows when it does that. So you can actually go out of the money and get a really, really low risk trade because we know that more than likely it will retest a higher low. And I do look a lot for trades like that. All right. Oh, I know. the center window, I'm sorry, this is measuring all of the currencies as well as the dollar index. And what you want to see is pretty much exactly what happened. The dollar's moving up, the euro was moving down, the British pound was moving down, not as well, but it was still moving down. The USD Swiss franc was moving down. So I know this morning only to be looking at trading the British pound, the euro US dollar, or the USD Swiss franc. Okay, so if you go to the British pound US dollar, you can see here we had a 4 o'clock market report this morning, and it was this bar right here because I actually traded that bar. And it just, I presumed that it would go down, and of course it did. It was a nice trade on that one. And again, it was simply because the dollar's moving up, the British pound is weak. Can you repeat why it will come back to retest it? It's the ADX trade that we do, Chris. If you have a strong ADX telling you that the market is trending, you make a magenta peak on a lower time frame, it retraces back to the ATR. More likely than not, it will come back and retest that low. All right, the currencies, the dollar is green, the Aussie is magenta, British pound is orange, the euro is red, the yen is purple, New Zealand is light blue, and the Swiss franc is white. And when I entered this one, I think I entered about 15 minutes before that market report, and it went down beautifully. Let's go and look at the euro US dollar this morning. I didn't trade it. Again, this is your congestion dot. Do y'all see how you had that divergence there? So you could have done a binary option. It would have to be 3,600, okay, to the downside. And I know when I looked at premiums on this earlier, everybody expected it to close above 3,600, and I was like, well, I don't think so. So you could have gotten a really good premium on that particular trade there. I should have captured it. I just didn't think about it. All right, now let's go look at the USD Swiss franc, because this is the one that's kind of confusing. The USD is going up, the Swiss franc is coming down, okay? That means that the US dollar has the strength, so you would be anticipating an upward movement on the USD Swiss franc, okay? Here you had a congestion dot, it came back to the congestion dot, gave divergence, and then came back down to the ATR. Now this is one where you would say, well, there's no divergence there. You can see, if you're looking at the delta, okay, you can see that on the delta that showed buyers stepped in. As it made that low, the buyers stepped in and controlled the bar. So you would actually be anticipating this to go up, okay? What will stop it from going up, okay? The ATR that is on the 180-minute chart, and the congestion dots that are on the 720-minute chart. I would anticipate this coming back to test this 8902 area. Then it may move up, okay? But again, you're going to have to clear the ATR over here, okay? And this, you know, on the 1440, do you see how this went back to the ATR, came back down here, went back to the ATR? These are actually really good trades on the binaries. Really, you know, you can get these in a very, very low risk mode just because you know that it should go back to the ATR, or it should go down to the congestion dot, okay? So let's say that we are up here, okay? Instead of going in the money on the binary option, go a little bit out of the money. Come down here to 89.50, okay? That's going to give you an extremely low-risk trade, okay? So you're not going to sweat over that trade. Again, when it comes back down to here, you're at 88.64. Okay, do one at 8,900 that closes, you know, the next day at 11 p.m. and you can get them that way. Does everybody understand that? And really, the risk on that trade is not going to cause you to hyperventilate. And you're not going to require a huge margin on those trades either. Which template are you using, Chris? Go out of the money, James. Hold on and I'll show you. USD Swiss Franc. I'm trying to find it. Give me a second here. All right. Because this is from a higher time frame. We're going to look at this, and we've got a couple of options here. We could go out until 11 o'clock tonight. Okay. And right now price is at 89.40. That's in the money. Okay. But I think it's going to come down, right? So I'm going to draw a line on here, and they have one for 89.20, which is here. Okay. And then they have one for 89.40, which is where it's at now. This is one I'll probably wait until after the U.S. market open to see if it comes up more, because then I could get this for a cheaper premium. Right now it's right at 50 bucks. Okay, I don't want the 89.20 on this one, James. Okay, because it's beneath the congestion dots. And this may just come back to the congestion dots. Understand? Now we could also go look at the weekly, see if there's anything on the weekly that I could do. And 89.25, I don't like any of these. Just off the top of my head, I'll tell you I don't. Number one, Chris, are you using the currency meter or are you using the index meter? When you apply the template, which one are you loading? If you're doing the currency meter, the DX has to be the first one. If you have changed all of the symbols, okay, so if you go to the indicator, highlight the THD meters, make sure they're all set to expire at the correct expiration date. Also make sure that when you load, if you're doing the indices, make sure that you load 15 days of data. The meters are very, very sensitive. I do have a video, Chris. If you go to the blog over on the right hand side, there's a blog article there. It's Ninja Trader videos, and I show you how to do it on Ninja Trader. And I show you the different things to check to make sure that you have the right one. Now, let's get back to the meter this morning, because most of these have been, that we have looked at so far, have been against the U.S. dollar. But I could also do, for example, the euro yen. Okay, the euro has been moving down and the yen is moving up. Okay, so this tells me I would want to go short on the euro yen. Again, here you're at an ATR. ATR. You know, ATR. That's all I'm looking at. Are we at an ATR? And earlier, you were even at the congestion dots over here. This one had diverging volume. This one had diverging volume. This one did not. This one had control by the delta. No buyers at all in this market. And then this one, you did not have divergence. But these are the types of movements that you see when you have one currency strong and one currency very weak. And the euro yen is an excellent currency to trade because it moves. Now, the two that you would not want to trade is the USD JPY. Why would you not want to trade the USD JPY? Because they're moving in the same direction. Okay, they're both strong. So it's going to come to which one is stronger. In this case, the yen was stronger. Okay, I don't trade ones that are like that because they're iffy trades. Do y'all see that? Now, and let's see. I'll use this one because I don't have a trade on it. All right, this is a 3-minute. I'll change it over to a 15-minute just to give you more of a snapshot. All right, do you see how this is? It made a big bar down, came back, then came back, and it's testing that low. It's doing it on diverging volume. This is because the yen is stronger than the dollar, okay? It could have went either way. It could have moved sideways all morning because they have the same direction. The dollar's going up, the yen's going up. Stay away from those trades. Which one looks better to you? If you're looking at these two, which one looks like a better market to trade? The euro yen over here or the USD JPY over here? I'm betting the euro yen because, again, they're going in separate directions, exactly the way you want them to go. Oh, much better, Al. Much better. It's not just a smoother curve, James. And again, this goes back to looking at the meter, okay? Do you see how the yen is going up and the euro, which is the red line's coming down? There's definitive weakness in the euro, okay? And there is definitive strength in the yen. Okay, so instead of saying, okay, I want to compare the euro to all the other currencies, I just want to see what the euro itself is doing. I don't want to muddle that water there. And I want to see on its own what is the yen doing. The currency futures allow us to do that. Do you understand now, James? And the only time I even look at them is when I can see on the meter, this one is definitely weak and this one is definitely strong. That's when I want to zero in on my Forex trades. Does everybody understand that now? And I'll tell you, you want some good Forex trades, that's all you have to look for. It'd be like taking candy from a baby. All right, does anybody have any questions this morning? Today's going to be hard because I'm actually on vacation this week. My daughter's having a baby this week, Keith. This week's going to be very hard. I do go back to my normal schedule next Tuesday. but I'm trying to play grandma this week. Did I do gold? Yes, I did, but I can look at it again. While I'm getting the gold charts up, we do have 5 seats left for the seminar in Las Vegas. And if you sign up this week, you can get 10% off the platinum package, any of the platinum packages, either for NinjaTrader, TradeStation, on multi-charts. It saves you about $300. Or you can get 10% off of the 5-day seminar in Las Vegas. You do have to use the coupon Las Vegas. And if you have any trouble, you can always email me. I think today, Bonnie, the key on gold is going to be the 180-minute chart at where the congestion dot is at 1325.4. If it does not break that, then it's going to come back down some. The DAX trade level, what do you mean, Chris? The dates for Vegas are September 29th through October 3rd, I believe, Chris. Yeah, that's already played out on the 3-minute chart. Just trying to think. This should actually pull back to the ATR. I think it's going to be slow doing it though. Right now, the potential is to go up to 98.81. Right up here where the congestion dot is. That's, you know, it could bounce up and then come back down. The one that I was talking about earlier this morning was all the way back here when it was at the ATR. I knew that it would test this low, Chris. That's what I went in on. I will, Keith. I'll send it as soon as I get through. Okay, any other questions this morning? Because I do have some trades on, so I need to watch the market opening this morning. I did record it this morning, so anybody that wants to go back and watch it, I'll have it up on the website. Probably later today.